Call this regular Oscoda Township Board meeting to order. Today is March 28th. It is now 7:06. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, you opened one. May I have
Okay, roll call, please, Josh.
Mr. Cummings?
Here.
Ms. McGuire?
Here.
Mr. Spencer?
Present.
Mr. Palmer?
Here.
Mr. Sutton here. Mr. Wusterbarth?
Present.
Ms. Richards?
Here. Okay, do we have any agenda additions this evening? No. All right. Okay, we are at our first public comment section of the agenda, the first public comment section. Do we have any comment cards?
I have one for Paul Rakowski.
Okay, all right. Paul, if you could please come to the podium. Just remember, it needs to be an agenda topic for the first public. Please.
Paul Rakowski from Oscoda. And I want to discuss the meeting minutes. I did review the meeting minutes, and I found that they failed to capture the malfeasance of the Oscoda Township Board in that meeting. And so therefore, I would like to discuss that a little bit right now, about what should have been in the minutes. I'm first going to read from the Open Meetings Act. A couple paragraphs, won't be long. Where's the timer? All right. A person must not be, well, no, forget that one. I don't need to talk about that one. A person must be permitted to address a public body under the rules established and recorded by the public body. And that last part is important because note that the rules established by the township has become part of the act, part of the Open Meetings Act, because it's referenced in there. So those rules that you guys produce are part of the act. Note that. Next, a person must not be excluded from a meeting otherwise open to the public except for the breach of the peace actually committed at the meeting. Breach of the peace, key. Okay. Now let me read from the Township Board's own protocol. Paragraph 8.12M. I'm sorry. 8.1.2F. The first public comment period is limited to 1 hour and a time limit of 4 minutes per speaker. Let me emphasize, the first public comment period has a time limit of 4 minutes per speaker. Second part in the same paragraph. Other than questions for the purpose of getting insight or clarification, the board members shall not interrupt or debate with members of the public during their comments. Okay, now this is regarding the second public comment period in 8.12M. Above, for public comments, see above 8F for public, 8.12F, excuse me, 8.12F above for public comment description. This item of the agenda is reserved for members of the public who wish to speak on any item that related to the agenda or not. So that person in the public is entitled to speak on any item they wish to speak about. No, note in this second, and the total of that second comment period description, there's no mention of any time limits. No mention of a 4-minute time limit in the second paragraph. So by its absence, that means there is no 4-minute time limit. And lastly, I don't know if I'll get to it, but anybody who violates this Open Meetings Act is subject to $1,000 fine for the first time they violate it, and then they are subject to $1,000 fine for the second time, plus 1 year in jail.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, I will be back for the second comment period.
Okay,
We have one more.
okay.
Vicky Hopcroft.
Vicki, please come to the podium.
I don't know why the thing is not working.
The, just before you start, the screen back there
Is not
working.
on.
Which,
So our buzzer is not going
so that means the buzzer.
for the
doesn't
time
go.
clock.
But just, I guess, Vicki, just keep, there is a clock above our heads, I believe, on that
Yep.
screen. Just, yeah.
Whenever you're ready.
So whenever you're ready, if you could just restate your name for the press as well.
Thank you. My name is Vicki Hopcroft. I'm an Oscoda resident and homeowner. I'm speaking today as an individual, even though I may represent groups or organizations. Today, this is me, Vicki. I would like to comment on Furtaw Field, and it probably goes without saying, but I want to say, as a citizen of Oscoda and someone who grew up here, born here, cheerleader here on Furtaw Field, I want to say that Furtaw Field is beloved to the community. It is a sacred cow. I feel that I'm speaking for the majority of the population. I may be, and maybe I'm not, but I want to put that out there. I think it's very significant to the community. It's not just a commercial property. Yes, it is on our list of disposable properties, but just because it's an asset, it doesn't have to be monetized. I don't believe it should be privately owned because it has so much history to the community of Oscoda. I think it ties us together, and it potentially will continue to tie us together in the future. It's a focal point. And it's not that I don't appreciate the efforts that people are making and Ms. Lovelace is making to do some do progressive developments in Oscoda, but housing should not be on Furtaw Field. I would love to see a community center there or community activities, but not housing. And I might suggest that it be taken off the disposable list, but I don't know the background on that. So I would hesitate to give a reasoned opinion on that because I don't know the background as to why it's on. Maybe it's important to bring developers to the area. They can look around and find something suitable. And I have a second topic I'd like to comment on, and that is the proposed code of ethics for the board, which I think is a wonderful idea. I would just add, because of my experience in the community and with many individuals taking on a position of organization or authority without much experience, I would strongly advocate that a prerequisite to serving on the ethics board be a training and a certification. And I do understand that all township personnel are obliged to have 6 hours of training. I don't know if that would cover them, but I think it's absolutely essential, putting together a citizens board, that there be some training. Having worked with a number of condominium boards, there is sorely lacking. The training is sorely lacking, and it messes up a lot of things. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on now to the consent agenda. First on the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes from March 14th. Are there any questions or comments on those from the board? Alright, hearing none, we'll move on to finance. We have the payment of bills. The first, we have the Visa, March 21st, 153704. Are there any questions on those? All right, then moving on to the prepaid March 22nd run, $47,877.34. Do we have any questions on those?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I had a couple of questions on here, and I did speak with Mr. Sutton earlier this morning. There appears, under several of the items, that duplicate payments have been made to what's the vendor is Wells Fargo Finance for copiers and printers. We're paying the same amount twice under each category. And what I would like to see happen is in the explanation column where it's the description of what it is that we're paying, if that can be a little more descriptive. We have, right now, there's for instance, under the clerk, it has MXB40P dash clerk's office. For me, and probably most of the attendants here in the audience would have no idea what that means. I think it's important that if anybody in our community wants to go on our packet and look at, see what bills we're paying and where that money's going and what it's for, if we could make that a little more explicit in the description. That's why we have that column as the invoice description. In those columns, it's under the clerk's funding, so we know it's the clerk. If we just had office printer, and then I think in this case, there's 2 months that are being paid, although it says March 1st. I believe, and Mr. Sutton will correct me if I'm wrong, one of those payments is for March, and one of them, I believe, is probably for April. And so if we could designate that in that column so that those types of things are laid out clearly for anybody that would like to review these payment of bills that are in our packet every week.
Okay. So you already spoke to Josh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll
Great.
be updating that with the information that Mr. Palmer requested in there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I noticed there's 2 different invoice numbers, but they do have the same invoice date.
And those are 2 different months, is
Right.
that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that run? All right, hearing none then, we have the check run for March 29th, $3,169.87. Are there any questions on those? All right, with that, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda.
Support by Cummings.
Thank you. There's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Cummings to accept the consent agenda. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to subcommittee reports and project updates. We have the March 2022 engineering report. I saw Rick in the audience.
Good evening, everyone. Briefly go through the report and then open up for questions. The water main projects, we've got, we'll be meeting with Catering Trucking here shortly to go over the punch list items from last year's project, which will be around the restoration. There's probably a half a dozen homeowners that we still need to hook up services on. We'll be scheduling with that. Some of those are actually, they leave the state for winter, so we've got their contact information, and we'll be working with them on when they get back to wrap that up. Phases C, D, and E, that project is this coming season's initial work, and that is out for advertisement with a bid opening scheduled for April 22nd. And then I I think in the packet tonight is the MDOT right-of-way resolution that will need to get accepted so that we can have the permit to work within the US 23 right-of-way as part of that project, because some of that work is there.
Before you go to the next, would you mind, just for the audience, you said C, D, and E, and I'm sure a lot of people don't know which, oh, probably I put you on the spot, didn't I? Sorry. Which roads those are?
I'm not gonna probably get this totally right because I don't have
Okay.
my map in front of me, but it is Ridge. It's the, that loop of roadways that is on the Lake Huron side of
Okay.
23. And then we've got a couple of the roads further south, and I don't, right off the top of my head, I apologize, I don't
St.
have.
Clair, Oscoda.
Yes,
Beach.
Right.
yes. So basically, we're taking care of west of, or east of 23. And then we're doing Interlake, finishing that loop on the other side of the railroad that we did as part of the Loud project 2 years ago. We're coming down Interlake back to the railroad right away. And those will be the projects for this coming summer in that package. We do have Woodland, Oak, Van Etten, and Oscoda, east or west of Cedar Lake, that'll be picked up as soon as we get indication of when the C2R2 funding becomes available, and then what criteria we have to do to go through the advertising and bidding process. Those projects are all designed, ready to go, because those were part of the ECWAG project of a
Right.
year or two ago. So it's just matter of finding out through the C2R2, which is out there with Eagle, on how they're gonna require us to advertise and bid that. But the plan is to also get that one under construction yet this construction season.
Okay, thank you.
That goes into the next one with Phase A and Woodland. That was that part of it. Service connections, again, if we get the C2R2 amount that they said that looks like we're earmarked for, the 2.5 million, we'll be picking up all of the miscellaneous service connections from past projects and also any other projects or where there's main, but has not been service hookups in various areas of the township. We've got that all included in that initial 2.5 million, if that funding truly is that amount. Phases F and the remaining portion of H, which finishes out the initial round of phases that we had identified as part of the Eagles monitoring and the PFAS plume that they keep updating. That is scheduled for either, again, additional C2R2 funding or the DWRF program in 2023 and 2024. Now, the caveat to that is that with the new funding that apparently is coming down through the state, through Representative Aller's office, the new funding that was announced last week, those projects could all be funded through that. We'll sort that out once we get the exact language and criteria that we have to follow for that. Now, her office used the language that we submitted 2 years ago, same time we submitted the original C2R2 and all that, so we should be good. It's just a matter of timing. And then if we can go that way, we don't have to go the DWRF loan program, which will save township resources. So, and we'll also look to go and back and get reimbursed for any of your expenses that have been incurred up to date, so. There's still also ECWAG out there, but maybe we don't have to go that route now, so we're holding that card back until we exactly know what's going on. Another part of this too is Senator Peters' office has also got a congressional spending request out there, and we'll be submitting on behalf of the township a application through that. Also to, again, kind of be generic enough to capture any infrastructure work that might remain out there, and that is due April 5th. And I think later on in the agenda, there's a request to get 3 letters of support for that application. Sanitary sewer project is moving along. They're working out at the lagoons, getting the building and stuff constructed out there. They're still waiting on equipment deliveries. It's starting to come in a little bit better now. So we had revised the schedule completion date till the fall.
of this year. And if things continue to come in the way they are, we can maybe move that up to late summer. But we'll wait to see as far as how that comes in. I already touched base on some of the funding. One mistake in there, I had the CBDG WIR, that's actually through MEDC, that's my mistake. And that was a funding program that we submitted on a couple of years ago. Pretty highly competitive. It is for the same type of work that the township is pursuing. We'll look at that as a possibility again to put the township in on that to see where we rank as far as that funding goes. Old Orchard Campground, John Henry, if the change order is for the increased materials cost is approved tonight, he is tentatively scheduled to get out there maybe later next week to start that project, which is the deck and the stairs. We also went out there today, there's some additional drainage grading that he needs to do from last year's project. With them starting at that time, they'll easily be done by the time the season opens up out there in May. The trail, finally getting some indication that we might be seeing the end of that as far as getting that out for advertising and bidding. Somewhat out of the blue, the Fisheries and Wildlife and the Forestry Service kind of all said, well, yeah, everything's fine. After how many months that we've been struggling to get them to do their final report.
Years.
Yeah, so we have requested from MDOT if what the documentation we have for the path right away is sufficient enough for us to advertise and bid that project. We haven't heard back from them yet, but the plans are all ready. Again, everything's ready to go. We just need their approval to put it in the obligation schedule. I think other than that, we do have the final site plan for the Holiday Inn Express Inn. There was some changes to the site plan. We're reviewing those right now. I will be attending the work session tomorrow on the township facilities to get the committee up on what we had completed back in the fall of 2019. The Orchard Beach improvements, again, I think that's later on in the agenda. We do have all of the legal language and descriptions ready for the amended plat at Furtaw Field. Just waiting on one clarification on that before we take that and get that all consolidated into one parcel under township ownership through the amended plat process. And I think that's my report, if you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Rick, on the, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On the service, you talked about the old and the new service connections. Does that include the ones from way long ago?
Yes, what we included in that application was any roadway distribution main was already in the ground that residents did not hook up to, or maybe some did and some didn't. We've picked up those numbers to include in there at roughly $6,700 a piece.
Okay.
So that would include, if there's not a curb stop will be installed, tapped into the main, the meter pit, and then the service line from the meter pit into the house, disconnecting the well, and that, so.
So if they've paid for it, will they get reimbursed then that?
That was included in the application. We just gotta wait to see the actual language coming back from C2R2.
Okay.
But they did not disqualify it in our application, so yes, the plan would be to reimburse those, like on Loud Drive and stuff, that had paid for it previously.
Yeah, we had some on US 23 also.
Mhm.
Yep, okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yeah, on the bike path.
Yes.
We recently got notice from Fish and Wildlife that they're starting their, Phase 7 biological review after they got the information from the Forest Service on their
Correct.
biology review. My understanding is that we can go ahead and go out for bids, even though that they require 135 days.
Correct. That has nothing to necessarily do with the acquisition of the easement.
Right.
It's just the mitigation measures that we would have to have included in the package for protecting the rattlesnake.
The rattlesnake, yeah. And the,
Which was not found, but the habitat is there.
and it's under the endangered species, which
Correct.
technically the rattlesnake is not on the endangered species. It's a recommended, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. But the, they require 135 days, but we can go ahead and bid,
Yes.
but the requirement is we can't, the periods that we can work start November 1st.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
So we could, hopefully, if nothing comes out of that report,
Mhm.
we can have the bids and then have our contractors ready to start November 1st.
Right, and we can adjust the progress schedule on where they can work and where they can't during certain periods of time. We're working with, the campground, because we're not gonna do any work in front of the campground, until 2023, so it doesn't impact their reservations for this summer. So I already worked with Al and Gary out there as far as we're gonna push, that, again, the schedule is gonna go through the rest of 22 and 23 anyway.
Right.
So we'll be able to move the project around those areas of concern.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank
Anything
you very
else?
much, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report. Tammy, the first on is number 1, amendment to the agreement for Great Lakes fireworks.
Right. The proposed amendment to the Great Lakes Fireworks Agreement is patterned after the most recent iteration of the contract and provides for a $12,000 budget, which can be increased, a 1-year term, and a 1-year annual extension. Your packet contains the proposed amendment to the GLF agreement and the 2021 contract with GLF. The amendment to the agreement with GLF requires Township Board approval.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
I'd asked Tammy earlier, we are going to, Asable's still going to participate in paying a portion of the fireworks?
I would imagine so. We usually invoice right around July, just
Okay.
before the fireworks. Right, Josh?
Yes.
So, depending,
Right. And we're still planning on launching off the pier?
yes.
Does this include the, did we do 10,000 last year? And
It was 12 last year.
weren't we supposed to progressively bump that up a little bit over the next couple of years so that they wouldn't say we
Yes.
can't have it on the 4th?
I talked to Bruce with Great Lakes Fireworks, and he made no mention of cost increase. They were actually, I had introduced myself through email first, and I hadn't heard back from them, so I gave a call, and they were like, oh, we've been waiting to hear from you guys. And I said, really? Because I emailed you about 2 weeks ago and haven't heard anything. So they made no mention of the price. I sent him over this amendment, and I was hoping to have had some sort of communication from him by now. And the only communication that we have had is from the DNR regarding a permit that they had applied for to do fireworks here.
Right.
So,
I don't remember us increasing it because of the cost of the fireworks. I remember increasing it because there were other townships that were asking for their services. And, as from a business perspective, they're trying to accommodate us as Oscoda, but if somebody else is gonna double the price they're gonna pay, eventually we're gonna get bumped if we don't raise it up a little bit.
well, last year, what had happened is we waited too long and missed our spot. We should have done it this time of year, and we did it later. So we were just behind last year.
I have a comment. The comment, or the contract is including the changes that we discussed. I mean, it looks good. There was just a clerical point that I wanted to alert you to, that if you look at the page numbers at the bottom, it indicates from the first page, it says page 1 of 6. If you flip to the back, the last page is 7, and it says page 7 of 6.
I will make sure
So
that's
just for the sake, because we often use page numbers to represent the completeness of the contract.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other points? or questions? Is there a motion to approve the amendment?
Yeah, Palmer, I'll make a motion to approve the amendments with Great Lakes Fireworks as presented.
Support, Sutton?
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr. Sutton. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And I would just note that, again, the fireworks are always on July 4th unless there's bad weather, and then they move to July 5th. So somebody takes note of that. Next on is the request to advertise for dust control.
Right. The township typically contracts for annual dust control to be performed in May and July. Your packet contains the invitation to bid associated with the 2022 road dust control. Based on this proposed RFP, the township would be accepting bids until Thursday, April 14th, 2022 at noon. This is structured to then be back in front of the township board for approval at the next meeting, April 25th, 2022. Advertising for the dust control RFP requires township board approval.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments?
Can we make a minor change in the dust control application? Because we're specifying in there that we have a price for a full load and a price for a partial load. We had a problem with that a couple of years ago. On the application, it just has a blank for the amount per gallon. If we could put next to that the amount per gallon for partial loads, I think would maybe, although I don't know, it makes a difference. We advertise every year and we always get the same company, so I don't know why we go through this process, but in case something changes. But we did have that problem a couple of years ago where they charge a different amount for a partial load than they do for a full load. So it might be helpful to have that in our application.
I will make that change, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want that included in your motion, Bill? To make that addition? Yes? Okay.
I didn't make a motion yet. I didn't make a motion.
Oh,
yet.
okay, I thought you did, sorry.
I can.
Okay,
I will move to approve the advertising for an RFP for the dust control for 2022 with the corrections as stated.
Support by Cummings.
Fast tonight.
I know, geez. All right, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Cummings. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the fire truck order request.
All right, your packet contains an email from Fire Chief McGregor regarding the capital improvement item, Engine 6 and Rescue, which is slated for replacement in 2023. This is the combination of two current fire trucks into one to be cost-effective and save space in our current fire hall. After a discussion with our fire truck representative, the order time for this vehicle is around 22 months. The fire chief is asking for authorization to start the ordering process.
Is there any, like, do we have to put any money down to make the order?
No, what they would be doing right now is just picking out the things they want and putting in their requests. And it would be just like we did with the Vector last year. They put all their parts together and we don't pay anything until it's actually completed.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Is this new truck going to include a ladder?
No, but that can be discussed.
So it'll definitely be planned for the 2023 capital
Right.
improvement plan.
Yes.
What services is he combining? I don't see that in the email.
He's combining two trucks into one, so it will replace Engine 6 and the rescue truck.
So it'll be a pumper. I'll ask him. I was surprised it wasn't
He's
in
just
here.
combining two into one, but I did think that we should probably ask about the ladder
Definitely.
truck.
Well,
Any other
judging-
questions?
Judging by what they're saying here, if it takes 22 months to get the doggone thing built, then we probably should go ahead and let them start the process. And I would move to approve Mr. McGregor's request.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Spencer, support by Ms. McGuire to approve the request. A roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wustabart?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the bunker gear purchase request.
At the previous board meeting dated February 28, 2022, Fire Chief McGregor had requested permission from the board to seek quotes for new bunker gear with a not-to-exceed amount of $65,000. At this time, 3 bids were received, and the lowest quote for the gear came in from West Shore Fire in the amount of $83,844. In order to purchase the much-needed bunker gear in 2022, we have moved the brush truck purchase to 2023 in the amount of $80,000, which leaves a remainder of $3,844, which can then be borrowed from the replacement fire hose allotment and capital improvement for 2022, which has an amount at this time of $22,500. I would ask that the board consider approving the bunker gear purchase in the amount of $83,844 to be paid out of Fund 206-000-981.000.
Are all 3 quotes for exactly the same thing?
Yes.
I would make a motion to approve the bunker gear purchase in the amount of $83,844 to be paid out of Fund 206-000-981.000.
Support.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. McGuire, support by I'm sorry. Sure. There's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Ms. McGuire, to approve the purchase. Roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wustabart?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, moving on to number 5, which is 2022 Wilbur Township Fire Services Renewal.
Right, your packet contains the 2022 Wilbur Township Fire Services Renewal. Based on the Wilbur Township taxable value supplied by our assessor for 2021, combined with operational costs and fire department equipment costs, the amount for Wilbur Township shared costs will be $9,187. I would ask that the board approve the Wilbur Fire Services renewal in the amount of $9,187.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you happen to know what the number was for Wilbur last year.
I can look it up. I don't have it right offhand.
It's fine, yeah, I'm
But
sorry,
it
I
was-
didn't ask in advance to prepare you. I was just wondering if this was a significant increase.
No, actually, it's a small decrease,
Oh, very good, thank you.
I think, pretty sure.
Fair enough,
But I will look. I'll look and get that for you.
thanks.
Any other questions, or do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve the Wilbur Fire Services renewal in the amount of $9,187.
Support, Palmer?
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Mr. Palmer to approve that renewal. Roll call, Josh.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wustabart?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes. Motion passed. Moving on to the pump station replacement project, pay application number 4.
Your packet contains the 4th pay request on the pump station replacement project in the amount of $101,892.83, leaving a total of $5,111,219.82 remaining for this project. I would ask that the board consider approving the fourth pay request from RCL Construction in the amount of $101,892.83 to be paid from the CWSRF checking.
Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I'll make a motion, Palmer, to approve pay request number 4 to RCL Construction in the amount of $101,892.83.
Support, Worcesterbarth.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Wusterbarth. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcesterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the CDBG grant pursuit.
Your packet contains the improvements and costs for the Oscoda Beach Park improvements that were identified for the CDBG grant application for your review. As stated at the March 14, 2022 meeting, this is being brought back to the board for approval to complete the grant application due April 15, 2022. I would ask that the board consider approving the Oscoda Beach Park improvements as presented and give final approval for the CDBG grant application. I do have Rick and Todd here for questions. Basically, the improvements that are listed are kind of like an a la carte that we can pick from to start with.
To start with for the application, or you're looking to, I guess, apply for all of it? It doesn't really say how much we're going after.
Yes, the recommendation would be to start the process on the entire package, but we're gonna put the application together, I believe, in phases. Once we get into a little bit more of the paperwork on the application request to spread it over several years. If the entire package, funding is not available at this time. So we would, as we go through it, we will, prior to the April 15th deadline, we will look to, probably at your April 11th meeting to present the priority list of the projects as we get further down the line in the application, because we will require at that meeting a resolution passed by the board, which will have the details of the application included in it. So this is more kind of initially information, get it in front of you to look at what the entire project comprises of. And like I said, as more detail of the application comes out, we'll have that out in advance of the April 11th meeting.
And what's the maximum amount on that CDBG?
That's what that's part of the information we're still trying to find out exactly what. I don't think there is a maximum amount, but we gotta be careful because these are all competitive, so we don't wanna price the township out of opportunity if we put too much into the packet. I think right off the bat, more likely than not, the pier extension would probably not be part of this application. For example, Tawash just did their pier extension and they got that through MEDC funding. So there could be other funding sources for that. So that takes $3 million right off for the initial estimate right away, so.
Is that a matching grant or is it?
It again depends on which category you fit into. The maximum amount looks like it's 20% match, but there's various levels of that. And again, depending on what in-kind expenses you've already incurred, as far as that goes, I think we can take into account the fact that you just went through your park master plan update. Those costs, I think, can be rolled into it and all of that. So that's what we're sorting out right now.
So we won't really know those details until we get farther into the application.
Right, and like I said, we'll have more of that as part of the priority listing and exactly what amounts you're applying for in that resolution at the April 11th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
But basically, tonight, we just wanted to get this in front of you, and generally that we're going in the right direction, and then we'll cross the Ts and dot the Is prior to that meeting.
I guess I just want a clarification. Does that eliminate the existing bathhouse then and put a new bathhouse, or bathroom, I should say?
Yes, because what we were looking at is based on, is increasing the size of the water park splash pad in that area, and then moving the bathhouse and pavilion down closer to the parking lot. Again, getting it a little bit more configured now with the hotel here, a little more, I'll say, hotel-friendly activities in this area, moving the skate park and the basketball down here. So just again, a little bit different arrangement of the park, more in line with the other development that's going in down there, so.
Well,
And
this-
again, those
yeah.
aren't necessarily locked, even if you're successful in your application, those locations are not final. Those wouldn't be final until the actual construction plans were put together for those.
Okay.
So I guess if we're not gonna know specifically what's gonna be in the application or the resolution till April 11th, what's the action that you need tonight or requesting?
Just answering your questions
Okay.
tonight, just getting
So, no
clarification on that. Again, the list that's here is what's gonna be included. We just don't know if we're gonna be requesting all of it or in phases so that they can approve, you know, based on your competitive nature with other communities.
This layout is pretty identical, isn't it, to what was adopted years ago by Beckett and the document that Beckett and
Right,
Rader
and we
did?
wanted to kind of stay with that
Okay.
same, again, so that you're in line with other grant opportunities and such as you move forward. We didn't want to completely turn it over, we wanted to kind of keep the same features in there, rehabbing some of your existing features that have weathered over the years, along with, you know, new improvements.
Right, okay.
And if I can comment, just for the board's benefit, in listening to the decision makers at the CDBG and the MEDC, what they're really looking for in this round of applications is projects that are deemed shovel-ready or on the shelf, things that the community has been looking at doing for some time now. Only, the only holdup is the fact that there's no funding. So those will get scored better and higher than a project that we invent in the last few weeks to present to them. So I just wanted to offer that commentary for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
I also want to clarify, I think you touched on it, but I just want to be clear that, let's say we put in a grant for a certain amount, we get less than that, we could revamp this to make it fit what we've been getting, so that would be great, all right.
Yeah. Similar to other applications we put in, we're trying to make it
Yeah.
generic enough so you have flexibility.
Absolutely. I'm still a big fan of this layout. I think it's a beautiful facelift for the Oscoda Beach, which I think is a real gem for this township.
I agree, and I like the boardwalk extending over into the wooded area next to the beach. I think that'll be a nice observation area for people to walk through. The only thing I don't like about it is that when we've discussed this, we were talking about adding picnic shelters, and it apparently according to what I'm looking at here, we're actually losing picnic shelters. Is that the case?
Well, again, conceptually, we got it laid out here. We can adjust that, because again, the language of the application will be picnic shelters and that type of thing, so we can adjust that.
So in the application, you're going to make it plural,
Exactly.
but on the drawing, it's singular, so that we
Right.
can change
And
it
again,
at our
the
leisure.
drawing will probably take a little different shape prior to the application,
Fair enough.
because that's a work in process as we go along, so.
I like the new skate park. That looks like it's got some definite awesomeness going
Yeah,
on.
that's an actually cast in place.
Yes, yes, a real skate park.
A real skate
Awesome.
park.
I'm sure that the skaters will love that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it looks great. I noticed that there's rental canopies on the beach. How do you go about renting those
And we were talking in the meeting, kind of similar to what the rental agreements are with some of the vendors out at Old Orchard. Something along that same nature, would be what we would anticipate.
I guess my question was more along the lines of where do they need to go to get it done? Is that something that we're going to add to the campground reservation thing so that people can reserve it right off the old Orchard site, or do we have any
Jeremy?
plans on?
I think that would fall under Lake Warrior Pavilion rentals and the
Yep.
Beach Park Pavilion rentals right now. So that would be done through my office.
So they'd need to
Through
come to the
Melinda.
township hall to rent one of the
Yes.
areas?
Yes.
Cool. Are you going to have a way to lock them until people rent them?
Yes, I believe so. Well, it's a process. And
And the
figure,
thought was
well,
we have-
this was a meeting of the minds.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, we had thought about that, and we would like to make them so they can be taken down in the winter too, so,
Oh, to keep them from being damaged?
Yes.
That's gross. Okay. Good to see that some more thought's been put into this. I'm excited.
Yeah, I guess I will not, which I will be announcing later on, but I won't be at that first meeting in April. But I would hope that we can focus, depending on how it phases in, but focus on the approach to the beach park,
Yes.
the roundabout, the parking, and making sure that with the fact that the hotel's going there, that we can still accommodate all the people that are coming to the beach with a better approach and a system. So I think
And
that.
you're right, that's what we talked about,
Yeah.
is moving from the hotel area out, because as you get closer to the water, that's more of your existing facilities, and those would be more of a rehab of those facilities. So the new features would be, yes, coming off from the parking lot and the roundabout in that area.
Right, and I think it's a great concept, you know, I mean, they thought of it years ago to move the band shell over and everything. It is a large budget, so I guess depending on what that is, I mean, it's not awful where it is, and maybe it could be adapted, just so that we don't keep stalling out for improvements because we're waiting to maybe for a bigger ticket item that maybe we can't afford down the road. I
Correct.
guess is just my thought.
And,
So.
and one thing that we can look at is relocating the existing band shell instead of necessarily, having something totally new also.
Right, I would think,
Sure.
I mean, and we do need to look at, there was some grant funding that was used for different projects here.
Right.
So obviously,
We
we
have to be-
can't, the skate park had
Right.
grant funding and so
We
on.
have to be careful.
So we need to make sure that we're not,
Correct.
being,
Mm-hmm,
breaking any kind of grant agreements.
understood.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Exciting stuff, though.
Yeah, thank you.
So right now, you just wanted to present and answer
Yeah,
questions?
just to get
Okay.
it, just to get out in front, and then, like I said, we'll try to get that priority list and the resolution out in advance
Mhm.
for anybody else to, comment on, and go through Tammy's office before it comes in front of the board on the 11th.
Right, yeah, 'cause April 15th is fast approaching.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay, then moving on to number 8, the Ani Medical Center, update placeholder. Do we have an update?
Kind of.
Just a question, a point, shouldn't we postpone that because it is an agenda item to the next meeting?
Well, we discussed it, there just wasn't any action.
But I think if it's on the agenda, we have to make some sort of action.
Looking for approval?
Okay, if you would like to.
Weren't they looking for approval to start the grant process?
Yes.
We already gave that.
And we gave that at the last meeting.
Yep, we did that at the last meeting. So, I mean, if,
Okay.
So just be to postpone.
so if somebody would like to make a motion to postpone.
I'll make a motion that we postpone action on the CDBG grant pursuit until the April 11th meeting.
Support?
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Mr. Sutton to postpone action. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And now moving on to Ani Medical.
Okay, so the auction did not hit the reserve mark as of last Wednesday. And I guess the request is to have a work session set up to discuss next steps.
We still have the option to accept any of the bids, don't we? If I recall from those meetings, we had the opportunity to accept those if we just so chose.
Well, under normal circumstances, the answer would be yes. but the highest bidder is breaching their commitment and contract with the auction platform. So the high bidder is no longer in play. We'd have to skip down to the second highest bidder, and I don't know what that commitment level is, you know, based on them not being the high bidder. So I would suggest that we meet as a group to talk through what our options are and what the board would like to see happen next.
When are you suggesting that we have that work session or that meeting?
Line sooner than later, but I know everybody's just starting to get busy again. So I can have Melinda try and set you all up with a date again tomorrow. Just send an email out and unless everybody can come up with a date right now, I will make it work if we could all agree on a date.
Let's give it a shot.
What do you guys want to do? Do you want to have Melinda send out an email or look at some calendars? I believe Steve's leaving fairly soon. to be gone,
I'm out until April 11th.
And then I'll be gone just after him, or right around then, and a couple days
Like
more.
tomorrow till April 11th?
I'm leaving Detroit at 8 o'clock tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
About like the 18th, which is Monday?
That, I believe we're closed. That's the Easter Monday.
Yes.
Tuesday?
Tuesday's fine.
I'm good.
Bill's throwing his stuff on the ground. He's decided to.
On the 19th, are you looking at the afternoon?
Whatever works.
Pardon me?
Whatever works,
will
I think
work
Tammy said.
at this point.
So, 1:30, yeah, 1:30 on is open for me.
Everybody else look okay for April 19th at 1:30?
That'll work for me.
I'm writing it down.
I'll let Melinda know tomorrow. I don't have my other calendar with me.
Okay. Well, I guess let's make a tentative.
Sure.
We could, I'll make a motion that we schedule a work session or a special meeting?
Work session.
It's fine.
Just a work session for discussion.
Okay. A work session on April 19th. I'm sorry, what time did you say, Tim?
1:30
At
to start,
1:30.
and then for as long as we need it.
Okay.
Support.
Great, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Ms. McGuire to schedule a work session on April 19th at 1:30 to discuss Ani Medical Center disposition. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, moving on to the row engineering invoices for approval.
Your packet contains invoices from Row Engineering for approval and payment from the funds listed. Do you want me to go down those, or do you guys just want to
Oh,
start reading them off?
Well, the first one we have is for the Iasco Exploration Trail. It's invoice 102-207, and the amount is $794.
I'll make a motion that we pay that invoice.
Support?
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Sutton for invoice 102-207. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And the next one is for Oscoda Phase B, G, F41 water main, and that comes out of the DWRF checking. That invoice is 01022294 in the amount of $2,065. Is there any comments or questions on those? Or that, I should say? Is there a motion to approve?
I would make a motion to approve payment of invoice 01022294 in the amount of $2,065 and invoice 01022299 in the amount of $20,715 to be paid from DWRF checking.
Is there support?
Support, Palmer.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Mr. Palmer for those two invoices.
Don't we need individual motions for each one of these?
No,
Not for this one?
just from where they're coming from.
Okay.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabar?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Then moving on to the wastewater pump station improvements, that's under the CWSRF checking account. We have 4 invoices there. We can do that same thing all in one motion, all right? So we have I make a motion that we approve invoice 010204 in the amount of $8,288.50. Invoice 01022295 in the amount of $8,532.50. Invoice 010205 in the amount of $16,096.25. And invoice 01022298 in the amount of $10,770.25. Is that it?
Yep, support.
Great, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Sutton to approve those 4 invoices. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabar?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. All right, now moving on to, where am I? OOP shoreline erosion project change order.
Your packet contains an email from the Old Orchard Park Shoreline Erosion Project contractor, John Henry, regarding a cost increase in materials to complete the last phase of this project. This project was originally approved in August of 2020 and was split into 2 phases. At this time, I'm seeking approval from the Township Board for an increase of $5,000 to complete the project totaling $70,750. I would ask that the board consider the project change order in the amount of $5,000, bringing the completion total to $70,750 to be paid from Fund 218-000-984.000.
Is there any questions on that? And they're planning on getting started fairly quick,
Yes.
is what it said. Okay, is there any questions, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the change order in the amount of $5,000, bringing completion to the total.
Support, Sutton.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Sutton to approve that change order. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wishtabar?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, moving on to LOI to purchase property 066-028-200-024-30, which is on California Street on the Wordsmith District.
Okay, your packet contains competing offers for the purchase of the above referenced property. For your reference, a survey of the property is also included. This property consists of 2.9 acres with a current zoning of WB3, allowing for up to 4-story multifamily or light manufacturing. Purchaser A, Mary Ed Tootin, proposes a 4-story multifamily project that would maximize the number of units to the current zoning code. Purchaser B, PKL Homes, proposes to maximize the site with multifamily, but may decide to carve out property from either side for a light manufacturing operation that may create new skilled job trades. nominating this parcel as disposable first, and entering into a purchase agreement with a buyer requires township board approval.
And I would like to bring to the board's attention that I know one of these people who is submitted an LOI, and as a result, I need to abstain from the vote.
No, personally?
Well, knowing somebody doesn't,
For 30 years.
That doesn't matter.
You're not
Are
gonna
you
financially,
financially
unless
gaining?
you're partner in the project.
Repeat that? No, I'm not going to be a partner in the project. I just want to make sure that the board is aware that that I know this person. I know Mary Ed Tootin, and that I don't want there to be any concern or issues down the road of having, voted in favor or against something that might help her. So that's all I want to do is be upfront about this. So does the board approve of that, or do they not see that need for conflict of interest be handled as an
It's not a
abstention?
conflict.
If there's no personal gain, I don't see a
Yeah.
conflict.
No,
I don't
that's
see that
correct,
as
there's
a
not.
problem.
As long as
Okay,
you're
fine,
not a partner
fine.
in the project.
No, she's not a family member.
I think notation was sufficient.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so are we asking the different parties to present anything? What is your plan, Todd?
Well, if the board has any, further information they'd like to have, or, any requested information, both potential purchasers are here this evening, if you'd like to ask any direct questions of them. I mean, there isn't any formal
Yes.
presentations planned.
Could I make a motion that we approve these properties as being disposable before we move
Yeah, I
forward?
was
If
gonna
we
say we
vote
need
not
to
to
do
make
that.
them disposable, then everything else would be.
Right.
So I would make a motion to make lots 066-028-200-024-30 and lot 066-228-200-024-40 as disposable township property.
Support, Worcester Barth.
So I was supposed to be writing that down, sorry. So there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Westerbarth, to make those two properties disposable. Which, just for the audience, those two properties are located on the former Wordsmith District, right behind where the senior condos are. One used to have the dining hall on, it was demolished a few years ago, and then the other one would be, what, to the south, I guess? I don't know. I'm gonna say the south, but just to the side of it, it actually has a section of parking lot on it as well, that actually kind of ties right into the senior condos parking lot. So that's the area that we're talking about. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes,
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Worcester?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried.
so that was just for the one parcel, right?
No, he did both.
He
Oh,
did
okay.
both in the
All right.
motion.
Yep. So that makes them disposable, which I guess I had asked this question earlier to Tammy. I mean, way back when these were actually identified as properties that we tried to sell for years with the township. I don't know if when we hired the real estate agent, if they were included in that or not, but I believe that they were always properties that we've tried to sell in the past.
Yes.
So, but I know that when we made some determinations, we didn't officially act at that time. This board didn't. So that's why you're asking for clarification. Okay. Okay, so from there?
All right, so from there, like I said, we have both potential buyers are in the house tonight. If you'd like for them to, if you'd like to question them, or you can fire away at me with any
Okay.
questions you have.
And they're currently zoned,
WB3, so that's a Wordsmith Business District, but that business district does allow for a multifamily up to 4 stories within
does
that code.
It requires a special permit though, correct?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know it is a permitted use.
It's a special permitted use, so it'd be a special use permit required.
I guess my only question in both LOIs, not to pick on one or the other, but under the purchaser's conditions, Todd, can you explain that to me? I mean, how does that play into, like, they want to bid on it, but under the purchaser's condition, let's say financing must be available for purchase and development. So if they can't get the financing for purchase and development, then they're not interested in it anymore? Or they can just not, I don't know how that works.
Well, first of all, this is not a bidding or an auction process. We've just happened to have two competing offers on the same property, which is the first time since I've been here that's happened. But the LOIs, it's a letter of intent, and so it's really the first step in the negotiation process between the buyer and the seller. And we are establishing sort of the ground rules for a purchase agreement. And so when you see the language of purchaser's conditions, it's just setting the stage for what will go into a purchase agreement, and that will be the document that both parties will have to live by.
Okay.
Why don't we hear
Yeah.
from both purchasers, potential purchasers?
Would you, I guess that's the question, would you both like to just summarize what you're presenting at each parcel, and give you each like a couple minutes?
Need you
You have to
to,
go to the
Yeah, you have to
podium.
come up,
Podium.
Mary.
Sorry about that.
People who aren't here have to hear you.
Good evening.
good evening.
So just to clarify the point on financing, if you're buying a home, you also have that financing clause in the purchase agreement, that if you can't get financing of a certain amount at a certain rate, then you have the option to step out of the contract. And that same here. It's just, if I can't get the financing that I need, then I would need to step out.
And the time frame that you're wanting to do this is a little bit far out, isn't
It is a little far out. It's a little far out because I watched the folks over on Pine Street, and they had a 2-year option that they needed to extend. And I went, okay, well then let me ask for 3 and potential extension if necessary. There apparently are a lot of nuts and bolts involved in putting a package like this together. So if I can do it in 6 months, I'll do it in 6 months, but I would like to have 3 years.
Okay, and do you have any experience in development?
I do not,
Okay.
but I do have experience in real estate. I have been involved in real estate on a full-time basis since 2004. And I have a lot of friends that are in construction that are giving me advice on this.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Mary?
Do you have any other potential projects going on in the township?
I do. I don't care to discuss them at this time.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mary before she steps from the podium?
I guess, Mary, what's your anticipated unit numbers for the building?
That's a good question. I believe that I read correctly that I can put 30 units per acre, and so I would want to maximize that. Then there's another number that I saw that was 20, and I just need to sort that out, that's all. So I'm going to maximize whatever's available per code.
Okay, thank you.
My other comment would be that if you can get that ladder truck to accommodate 6 stories, I wouldn't mind building 6 stories. We could certainly talk about that as well.
Okay.
Are you concerned at all with, sorry, Steve, were you finished?
No, I just sparked a question. I'm not sure what the height maximum is out at the airport, so we'd have to check on that.
I
Definitely
think it's
something to
different
find out.
areas is different heights, actually, when I talked to Nicole today.
Okay.
I forgot my question. Oh, I know what it is. Do you have any concerns with being so close to the industrial or manufacturing area? Like right
No.
across the street, you have quite a few different manufacturing, and Air Tech is right across the street, and a couple other places right there on that road.
Yes, I've been trying to determine how noisy they are, and they don't seem to be horribly noisy, to be honest. It might require a little more soundproofing on that side. But there would also be soundproofing because of the airport being so close as well. I grew up under an air path, and it's like, wow, that's noisy. Yeah, that was a factor, but I have been checking at various times, and I have not found it to be particularly noisy. I'm thinking that the close proximity to Coletta and just being where it is would be possibly an overriding factor, making that less important to someone who would live there.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Mary?
Aren't there 2 parcels north of that? What makes, why do you want the southern ones instead of the northern 2?
Todd, are the northern 2 available?
No.
They're not? Oh, I was just looking at the map in the board packet, and last time I drove by there, they were empty lots.
If
They're
they
not
are owned
available?
they're owned by Air Tech. They purchased them in the last couple of years, I believe.
Oh, never mind then.
Any other questions?
Other questions for Mary? All right, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, if you'd like to come to the podium? Thank you.
So clarification on the 2 lots. One lot, I would propose workforce housing. On the other lot, I would propose manufacturing facility, particularly to bring 20 to 30 jobs to the area in cooperation with Governor Whitmore's new initiative with pre-apprenticeship program, specifically targeting unemployed, underemployed women and people of color to get into the construction industry as a apprenticeship program, and I'd like to do it in conjunction with the Alpena Community College as well. I've started those conversations. That location would be perfect for that cooperative effort.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Same question for you. Were you concerned at all with having the housing in the close proximity of manufacturing?
No. In fact, I think it's a benefit because we're going to be doing workforce housing. So it's also going to be an opportunity for some of the students that will be participating in the program to actually live on site and work in that distinct area.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still considering the other development? I thought you were looking to purchase property behind Party and Food Center and doing a development there for
Yes.
workforce housing?
Yes.
So you're looking to expand this into this area as well?
Yes.
Okay. Check on that.
What would be the nature of the manufacturing?
We'd be manufacturing tiny homes on wheels specifically designed for construction companies. I have a number of clients that specifically have this ask and frankly are waiting for pricing and models to begin pre-ordering.
Because the zoning allows for light industrial in that area?
Yes.
So that would be considered, I guess it's a
Yes.
special use, so we'd have to look at that
Yes.
as being light industrial. Okay, thank you.
And your intent for housing, I'm assuming, is your container style?
Yes, it is.
And how many units are you looking for there?
Maximum capacity on one lot. So one lot for manufacturing, the other for housing.
I guess, is this area part of the PUD ordinance or proposed that's being discussed?
I don't think
Well, it could be.
The whole
You can have a
former
PUD.
Air Force bases.
You can have a PUD anywhere.
No, I know, because there's discussions going on, I'm just wanting to know if this particular area is identified.
I think they've looked at the Wordsmith district yet. Have you?
That's on the agenda
It's on the agenda.
Right.
for us to start the process.
Right.
Plan unit
District.
developments could be placed in any type of zoning. It's a zoning inside of a zoning.
They're looking at, it's for multi-use across the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions for Pam?
Yes, I have one. I guess I'm looking at your LOI
Mm-hmm.
for the 2.5 acre property, and it's $10,000, but unless I'm missing something, I'm not seeing the LOI for the second lot.
It was kind of mumbled in there a little
Okay.
bit, but there is one,
I missed it.
for 12,000, I believe, for California Street,
10,
Correct.
2.9 acres. Okay, is there any more questions, or we'll let Pam sit back down again till the next agenda item?
That's me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess technically I mean, we are lumping these into kind of one, right?
Well, I presented them to you as, because they're two separate parcels, so,
Right,
but
right.
however you guys
Right.
want to vote is up to you.
Yep. So I guess what's the thought of the board here? Guess I'll start. I think that we need to be careful with too much speculative building and too long of a time period putting it out there with the fact that, I mean, we only have so much land available out on the Wordsmith District. I know a lot of people think there's a ton of vacant space, but there's really not. So we still have a big question mark, and we actually have an agenda item a little bit later on in regard to this, you know, SpaceX and what's coming here and what they're gonna need for room and, you know, and manufacturing facilities, which obviously does require more housing. But that all being said, I just think we have to be careful of speculative buying occurring, and then when we maybe start hardcore development, then we're having people holding land that might be more difficult. I'm not implying either one of these people would be more difficult, but could potentially be more difficult than working directly with the township on a sale. So I just have concern there on selling property at this point when we're not sure exactly what all is happening with that expansion. So when we're still waiting on that. So that's kind of my thought in that area.
Well, I think it's been pretty clearly shown through our housing study that we desperately need additional housing now, whether or not we get the spaceport in the township or not. The only project we have going right now is a project that started almost 4 years ago, and 2 of the buildings have been built. A couple more are in progress to be finished up, so that's been a long-term process to get a limited number of housing units there. Everything else has been sort of speculative. We have possible housing developments coming forward, but I think, you know, personally, I think we need to move as quickly as possible. Both these offers are very similar. The one difference that stands out to me is the difference between a 3-year waiting period and a 6-month waiting period. So under that, I would prefer to go with the proposal from PKL to possibly get something done moving forward here in a 6-month period rather than wait a 3-year term to get anything moving here. We need housing here in Oscoda now. So that's my thought on this whole thing. So I guess with that, I will make a motion to approve the LOI from PKL Homes for parcel 066-028-200-024-30 as presented.
So that's California Street, correct?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Okay. Is there support for that motion?
Support Sutton.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton to accept the LOI from, PKL for the California Street property in the amount of $12,000. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
No.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
No. Motion carried.
And Ann, I'd like to explain my no vote.
Sure.
Ms. Lovelace, it's nothing against what you're trying to do. In fact, I appreciate everything you're trying to bring to the township. I'm just concerned that we have a lot of new people. We have projects that are going on for a long time. And I know you're committed behind party and food, and honestly, I'd like to see some shovels in the ground before I would approve more projects. Yes. Well, it's up to Ann, if you can, because I don't
That's
run the
fine with
meeting,
me.
so.
I'd love to see shovels in the ground also.
Yeah.
I've been in contract on that property for 60 days. The seller has till April 28th to perform. And part of that performance is they have to give notice, they have to vacate the people that are there that are not paying rent, and the structures have to be removed by the seller. So it is not on my end, it's on theirs.
Well, and it's also, for me, it's a concern of delusion, getting too many things in the fire, so.
I'd like to explain my vote also.
Your yes vote?
Yes.
Okay.
I just want to thank Mary Ed for submitting her application for her LOI as well. I appreciate it and wish you the best of luck in all your endeavors.
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on to the LOI for Michigan Avenue.
I will make the same motion, and if I may, move to approve the LOI from PKL Homes for parcel 066-028-200-024-40 as presented.
So that is, again, Michigan Avenue in the amount of $10,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there support for that motion?
Support, Sutton?
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve the LOI from, I don't know why I can't remember the order of your letters, sorry, PKL. Yeah, I just don't want to say it wrong, PKL. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
No, for the same reasons.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
No, thank you. A motion passed. Okay, moving on to the LOI to purchase Furtaw Field.
Okay, your packet contains a revised LOI and revised development plan by PKL Homes for the purchase and development of Furtaw Field. The revised development plan includes supporting materials that show revised facade elements, a community center, pickleball courts, public bathrooms, and a green space for outdoor music and seasonal events.
Okay, do we have any questions or,
I do.
okay?
If you could, please. Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce you to Burton Caldwell. He is representing Blocks Nuco out of Grand Rapids.
Awesome. I watched the video.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was the video that was sent to us, correct?
That was a video that I sent over to show what the units could look like on the inside.
Thank you. So my question is, you incorporated the green space again and had some other things listed. In your other proposal, you wanted the township to chip in or maintain the other green space, is that the same case with this, or is this gonna be green space in the fire pit and different, the bracket, or the pickleball and those type of things gonna be for just the residents, or is that gonna be a public park?
That is a public area.
Okay.
So the improvements include the community center, pickleball, pavilion, fire pit. We added a splash pad, the public restrooms, a concert hall or concert stage, and on the side, we also added a EV charging station. A change to the plan was the retail space on the bottom level of 23 of both buildings. That space now would be offered to the township, because I know the township was also looking for additional administrative space. So what I did is I went back and we reworked your comments and what you were looking for, and combined with what the community was looking for, to try to bring as much as possible without crowding the green space, because I know typically these stage areas, what has been done in a lot of parks in the past in the summertime, is they like to make those a theater area for outdoor movies, and people can sit on the grass and watch the movies. So I wanted to make sure that there was actual green space that was left for that enjoyment.
So all those amenities are something that you will pay for and maintain?
Yes.
Correct, okay.
We're trying to bring a consensus together with the community, as well as bringing the housing. We don't want to be perceived as one side or the other. We're trying to bring everything together in one space. We also added roofing, if you notice on the rendering.
On some of the different programming and so on, at the very bottom, you have commission, 3% to buyer's agent.
Yes.
Is that an accident, or?
I did not have an agent representing me. I put that in there just as a buffer, if you will. But since this is a resubmission, I am not going to be utilizing an agent for this purchase.
Okay, so you're not asking for 3% of the
I will not be using the
purchase?
3%.
I was gonna say, are you a real estate agent, or?
Not in this state.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
No? No questions for Mr. Caldwell on the product?
I like,
He
you know,
came from Grand Rapids.
I like what you did with the layout, because my vision for Fertile Field is something that's multi-use. But as from the last, or 2 meetings ago, this is still the container construction for everything, for the living spaces and retail. Correct.
We also platted the entire.
No, I understand
back of
that.
the
Okay,
building.
I just wanted to make that clear, but I think, you know, you definitely hit the mark for what I'm envisioning. I'm still not there on Fertile Field with containers, as I stated from the last meeting.
Anything you want to address for that? I'll move to the side.
Good evening, I'm Burton Cardwell. I'm from Blocks, Grand Rapids, Michigan. And so if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer. I understand that containers have an emotional pull or draw, one way or the other, and I absolutely respect that. And this isn't the first comment that we've heard like that. What I would say is that I believe, and I may have said this before, I think this is going to be transformative for the community. I think the container aspect may be a little heavy in terms of weighted, because we have metal buildings around us all over the place. And we don't really have any issues with those. We tend to clad them in vinyl. We clad them with cement. we clad them with a various brick block, and we beautify them. So the container, I understand, again, there is an emotional aspect to it, but I think what we have planned is to actually mitigate some of that as much as we possibly can for the community and for the aesthetics for Oscoda.
I guess I just have a couple questions. I mean, I saw the video, and thank you for sending that. You know, Nashville, and I've seen these out on the West Coast, you know, kind of, I would say, more progressive cities than what we are, more very traditional, laid-back type community. But as far as clear span, when you put blocks together, like 4 of them, I mean, how do you do that structure? What kind of spans? If you put, can you have a clear view for a conference room that goes 60 feet wide?
So if I'm understanding your question, if you're looking for a 60-foot wide.
Or 40 foot, something 2 or 3 on the side, how do you do the clear span?
Sure. So what we would do in that particular case is we would potentially actually fill in with standard construction in that particular situation. So a container can span 40 feet, but if you were talking about trying to make something greater than that, then what we would do is we would actually combine both the container, the construction of the container, and the strength thereof, and then we would also marry that with probably some sort of steel to then be able to span the distances that you're talking.
So you just pick up columns, and you're gonna have columns in the way type thing? Okay.
Yes.
And then besides what was on the video, specifically in the Midwest, what communities can we look at to do some more research?
Sure. Are you talking about specifically from our company?
For just container homes
Sure.
that you know of, something that we can all do our own research. Because
Absolutely.
it's new to me, so.
Sure. That's a great question. I think there are not as many as I would like, to be completely honest, but the reason for that is because they are newer. But if you were to look, again, Midwest, I think probably the closest place that I can come up with for you is going to be, let's see here. I'll be completely honest, I think what we're gonna have to do is I can get back with you because I've got so many of those things in my head, but I know that it has happened in St. Louis. I know that we've done some talking with some people in the Detroit area. As a matter of fact, I have a trip down there first thing in the morning to do another development, potentially with Belle Isle, but I will give that information to Pam so that she has specifically, can answer your question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
What is your strength comparison on these to your standard construction?
I would say they were equal to. The strength of a container is based on it being a solid unit, right? And because they are designed to go and be able to be stacked 9 high without any added structural support, I would think that, again, anything that we need to do to increase that, that falls on our structural engineer, which we do have 2, one of them in-house, and we also have an architect in-house.
Then I see on here, Pam, you guys had it changed out for the back and the top, so the roofs are in there. Is that like the cement you're talking about? That's giving that color in the photos?
Sure. Actually, that would probably be a truss system in that particular situation. I think what we would want to do is we're trying to, again, add a little beautification. We did get some feedback that the flat roof wasn't necessarily, I guess, everybody didn't like it. And so what we wanted to do is kind of mitigate some of those. But that would be a truss system just like any other commercial structure.
When I was watching the video that you sent over, it did pop up with a couple of container structures that were built in other states and some of the interesting things that they've done with those. And instead of having the flat roof, they actually built chill spaces up on the roof. I thought that was interesting. And was that considered, or just out of curiosity?
Well, we definitely considered it. We have done it and built those in the past, and there are a number of residential units that we've built with that, so we can absolutely discuss that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just one comment. I want to thank Ms. Lovelace for her, participating in our township here, trying to make some improvements for us. We appreciate that. And at the last meeting, I addressed your offer for this property, and you have significantly increased that. The problem I have right now is that this board charged the Planning Commission with doing a study of a change to a location for a multi-use facility, including police, fire, community center, those kinds of things. And we've had one meeting so far. We met with the fire chief and the police chief. We're having another meeting tomorrow. This is going to be an ongoing process for a little while because we're looking at various properties. They may not all be on one. But the situation is that Furtaw Field is certainly a part of that discussion. So I think any move that this board would make on Furtaw at this point would be premature until the Planning Commission is able to complete its study of where we want to have that facility. So at this time, I would propose that we, table this proposal until we can complete that process through the Planning Commission. But I do appreciate your interest in this and trying to help move our township forward. I truly appreciate that. So, thank you.
Thank you. May I ask, when you're tabling?
That's Bill's suggestion. We haven't acted on that.
Yeah, we haven't acted.
So, and I guess I want to add a little bit to that as well. Very much appreciate, you did take what we said, you took it to heart, you increased the price, you looked at what the community, what you've been reading in the paper, what people want. I go back to the fact that almost a year ago, June or July, I'm not sure when it was, we tasked the EIC with doing some community outreach meetings. We held those at Warrior Pavilion. We gained, I don't know how many, what do we have, 4 meetings or so, I'm not sure. We have not got that summary back to us yet to kind of look at Furtaw Field and what the community ultimately wants there. We said that that's what we were asking for. We need to, in my opinion, kind of look back at that. And kind of identify what we want instead of you. Like you've said, you've spent thousands of dollars putting together proposals and so on and coming forward, and you get negative and positive comments from the public, and you're taking on a lot. To me, we're sending mixed messages. We're now, we have some board members that want a facility maybe on Furtaw Field, a whole, municipal, some do not. I don't know if we're gonna ever agree on that, but we need to get our proverbial stuff together here before we expect anybody to come forward and make a presentation that we can all be comfortable with. And I just feel that it puts you in a bad position, and I'm sorry for that as well, because I know you've gotten a lot of grief on some things. So I'm very appreciative of the amount of money you want to invest in our community. To me, that says a lot. But we just need to make some smart choices, and if we are going to develop it as a board, then we, I think, need to bring in the developer and have everything, all the ducks in a row, kind of, to make that decision. My thought is anyways. I know we made it on the disposable list, but I know we have a couple board members that voted to make it disposable, and at the same time now, they're talking about putting a municipal building back on there. And we still haven't cleared the title yet. So I just think we have a lot of things to clean up in my mind before we keep dragging the public in all this emotional roller coaster that we keep doing every time we bring up the
Furtaw Field. Bringing up Furtaw Field.
Bringing up Furtaw Field. I just, that's my thought. Again, I'm 1 out of 7 people, but that's my thought. So. And I guess I'll just add, we've had situations in the past where we own property or we rent property or have public parking lots that somebody else owns. And we've had wars with those people where they push snow and barricade. I mean, there's just things that happen. So I think we need to be very careful about any kind of relationship we enter into where we are then have a private entity that's gonna be quote unquote providing public use. Because people don't always get along and they, you know, we can just have situations. So it's 3.3 acres in the middle of our downtown. We need to be very careful.
I appreciate everything that you just said, because it has been a roller coaster for me, in that this was a property that was listed for sale.
I understand that.
So if the disposition was unclear, I guess my question is, why was it listed for sale? So I would really like to have the opportunity that if it is not, if it has been decided that the township is not going to utilize the land, that I'd have first opportunity to come back and present once more. Because as you know, when you're building something of this size, it takes careful planning and it takes time. So the window is closing for this season. And I respect what you're saying, you need more time to figure out the disposition. So that's the only thing that I would request, is that I be given an opportunity to come back and compete if competition is warranted.
And you are correct, it is listed on, I mean, we voted, it wasn't a unanimous vote, but there was a vote to make it for disposition.
And Bill, you were talking about tabling it. What kind of time frame are you guys looking at the Planning Commission on municipal facilities?
I couldn't give you an answer on that specifically. We've had one meeting. We're planning another meeting. I think this is going to require multiple meetings on the Planning Commission part. We did bring it to Planning Commission, whether to set it up as a subcommittee, and we decided it was too important an issue, and so we are involving the entire Planning Commission. And as you can imagine, trying to coordinate times and dates for those meetings is difficult, as we all know, for planning our meetings. But there are going to be, you know, more meetings that will be required to make a recommendation to the board of what the Planning Commission finds. And I can't speak for the entire Planning Commission. I can only speak for myself, and my feeling is it's going to take a while for us to go through all the available properties, what's required, a needs assessment, all those kinds of things that will have to be done. That will all take time. So like I said, I appreciate Ms. Lovelace, you know, trying to help the township out with our housing needs. That's greatly appreciated. But until we can work out what this board charged the Planning Commission to do, I think we need to wait on any of these proposals. So I don't have. That's why I would suggest we table it as opposed to postpone. If we postpone, we would have to put a date on it.
Tabling means we have to bring it up later in this meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess my concern is if we're looking at it for municipal services, and we've obviously been in a position where Pam has put a lot of time and money into this, as a board, do we remove that from disposable until such time as a decision is made to put it back into disposable, to avoid any, what if other investors come in and want to start putting plans together under the same pretense that we want to sell it, but on the same note, we're not there? What do we do as a board going forward from here? Do we want to pull that and reserve it while we're looking? Or do we keep it out there for other people to keep making offers on? And just to
And
be
further,
responsible
if
to
we-
the time and money and effort that goes in, and we do. We appreciate that. You've reached out to community members. You've heard what everybody's doing. And I don't want to see people continually do that.
There's also been concern about the grant process, so if we take it off of the disposable income list, putting it back on could affect our chances of grants in the future.
Only if you have it in the park plan. Right now, it would just be,
It's not
right
in
now
the
it's out
park
there as
plan.
for
Right.
sale. So you, me,
It's not in there.
anybody in here could make an offer, and if you put time and effort in, and we're not really gonna consider that, it would just be responsible to either remove it until we make that decision and we're ready to move forward with selling versus a municipal structure, a park, or what have you. Right now, we've got it out there for sale, but then we also don't wanna sell it because we're looking at doing other things with it, so it's just unfair to the people trying to do business with us.
I think that's, Mr. Sutton's right. I think the proper move here would be to move to take it off the disposable list temporarily until we, can have a decision on what we're going to do.
All right, so is that your motion, Bill?
I will make that motion that we
Well, I think
remove it from the disposable.
legally first, we have to.
Well, and you already made another motion, right? That you didn't get a second on, to postpone.
I don't think I made that official motion. I was just suggesting that we table it. But I will make a
okay.
motion that we table the letter of intent from PKL Homes,
And the word is table,
table, as opposed to postpone.
and then there's no
Table
legally
means we're
binding
bringing it up
either
later in this
party.
meeting.
So that means there's no time frame on that.
But it's not legally binding either party, it's just
Right.
it's not,
We have a
postpone is
difference of
different.
opinion in regard to tabling.
Yeah, Bill, I think that if you table it, it has to be brought up later at this meeting. We have to postpone it.
That's right.
If it's
No,
not,
no, that's not correct.
Protocol book out.
I got it.
Do you have that, Mr. Rakowski?
Same lines in my bag.
Own address. Yes. Good God. Okay, what are we looking for? Tabling?
Tabling.
You know where it is, Josh? General rule of procedure, 9-1.
No, I got my book here.
Postpone indefinitely. It definitely kills the main motion and avoids direct vote on the question. Express now.
We're just trying to do the correct thing in regard to your LOI.
I
so
appreciate
that.
that.
We handle it in the most efficient. There's several ways we can do it, so.
Postpone business.
I think the point I was trying to get at is if you decide to sell it again and put it back into that disposition, what I was looking for was, are you willing to give me first right of refusal since I have put in time and money and
Well,
it's not decided?
I guess I would not authorize first right of refusal, no. I mean, this is public land.
Right.
We owe it to the public to make the, to have anybody be able to present, depending on what we decide we want there to begin with. So
Okay.
I
Then-
don't think a first right of refusal would be appropriate.
Then I would ask that I be allowed to participate
Oh, of
because
cour-
I have gone
Oh,
down
of
the
course,
road.
I mean, yes.
Okay, I
yeah.
just want to make sure what we're determining right
Right.
now isn't
It's-
keeping me
the
from
issue is-
participating.
It's a contract. It's a potential contract, so we have to disposition the contract either way, legally. I don't think we can postpone.
Well,
Would we be
I mean,
better
an
at-
LOI states right on there that it's not a contract, it's a letter of interest.
Well,
So-
it's an intent, so I guess
Right.
it does expire on March 30th, so.
Right,
Right,
Yeah.
so we just let it
right,
expire.
okay. So, right.
Take
So
no
sorry
action.
for that confusion. I mean, an LOI is not a contract to begin with, right? It's just a, I shouldn't say just, it is a letter of interest, right? It's not a binding document.
So-
Okay.
Then
So-
it could be tabled, I
Right.
believe, yes.
So we will
You can put,
not act on the letter of interest. And then it will expire on March 30th, okay? All right.
So then with that, would you guys like me to make a motion to remove Furtaw from disposable?
Yeah. I believe Mr. Palmer started that motion.
Are you? Mr. Palmer, or would you like me to do that?
Go ahead.
I think you have to finish the table motion first, officially. You can't just not.
Yeah, the motion was to
something.
table
Okay,
the.
I make a motion that we do not act on the LOI to purchase Furtaw Field.
I'll support that.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. Richards, support by Mr. Westerbarth, to not act on the LOI to purchase Furtaw Field. letting it expire on the March 30th date as indicated.
I'll still support that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wushabar?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. And then, next on, Josh?
I would make a motion that we remove Furtaw Field from the disposable list until a determination of what the township wants to do with the property is made.
Support.
Okay, there is a motion by Mr. Sutton, support by Ms. McGuire, to remove Furtaw Field from the list of possible disposable properties.
Due to the study, I'd like the motion amended due to the study that's ongoing at the planning commission.
Okay.
That's the
No.
reason.
No, that's not the motion that Josh made.
I'm asking for an amendment to that motion, if he'd be willing to do that.
What did you want on there?
Did you want, he wants you to amend the motion to include the,
The reason is because
The
of the
reason-
ongoing study within the planning commission.
until they
For the-
finish their study. Is that what you're,
No, that's not what he said.
Well, I guess, is that the same? Do you want it to come back
It's
to the
not the
board for
same.
decision on that study for determination of what we're gonna do with it? Or do we just wanna, once they make a determination if the municipal services would go there, then we would have to approach it again? This just makes it, once they're done, we could bring this back to the board. If they're not going to do a municipal, or they want to do something else and we're going to make it disposable, we would then make it redisposable. But for this time, we want to remove it, so we're not putting people in a position to do work under the expected sale of it. So it would come back to the board
Right.
once we have the planning commission and everything else. We've got the stuff from Furtaw Field that I believe we still wanted to present. And then we also had the planning commission working on municipal services. So there's a couple different things going on with Furtaw at one time.
Correct.
So I guess I would like to see all of that wrapped up and come back to us to make a decision at that time.
So is that your amended motion to include all that?
That'd be a motion to remove Furtaw Field from the disposable list until the board has made a determination of the use. I mean, at that time, once everything's done, we would make a determination on whether it's gonna be sold, it's gonna become a park, it's gonna become a municipal building.
Yeah, the planning commission will simply make a recommendation to this board. The planning commission can't determine, you know, what the outcome will be for this multi-use facility. We will make a recommendation based on our study, but then it will still be up to this board to finalize that decision.
Right, that's what Josh was saying.
so, right, so it'd be pending, planning commission, municipal, building review, clear title, and, public input summary, from EIC, wasn't that?
Right.
Yes,
that
we had
incorporates
information.
all
So
of that
those
to
three
come back to
things,
the
I
board
guess,
and then
it
we
would
make
come
our
back to the
decision.
board to make the decision.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
Do you still support that?
Yep.
You support
Well, I didn't
Yeah,
support
I
it.
was gonna say, yeah, it's,
Me.
Mr. Sutton and Ms. McGuire on
Yep.
those, okay, all right. Is everybody understanding what we're voting on?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we understand the, not making disposable, but the layering effect,
Yes.
okay. All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wushabar?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay. Thank you. All right, moving on to resolution section of the agenda. First on is form-based code for Wordsmith District.
Okay, you have a quote from Beckett and Rader to rezone the Wordsmith District in the amount of $15,000. That was budgeted for in the capital improvement for 2022.
So this is Beckett and Rader again.
To look at the entire wordsmith district.
They're gonna look at like looking at some of the areas or just kind of form-based code as a whole?
They're gonna do,
Is that,
It would be the whole area as a whole, they would be looking at all the zoning that's present, and then condensing it into one type of zoning with several different zoning, industrial, business, residential.
Do you want to comment? As you're the-
Yeah, it would be excluding the airport facility property, just the township property.
Right.
Beck and Rader has done an excellent job in our other form-based code areas that they've helped us with rezoning. And this is just the next step that we're taking in the form-based code process. So I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from Beckett and Rader for the form-based code rezoning in the Wordsmith District as presented in the amount of $15,000 as budgeted in the capital improvement plan for 2022.
Support.
okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Westerbarth to approve the proposal as submitted. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the ordinance number 2022-271.
I would ask that we postpone till the April 11 meeting pending the changes from the work session this morning.
I'll make a motion, we postpone till the first meeting in April.
I'll support Palmer.
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Palmer to postpone until the first meeting in April. Roll call, please.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to Resolution 2022-04, MDOT permit resolution.
So this is the resolution that Mr. Freeman spoke of earlier for MDOT for the upcoming water main phase.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on this? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to approve?
Palmer, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-04 as it relates to municipality use of state highway right-of-way as presented.
Support, Sutton?
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve Resolution 2022-04. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes?
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to other, first we have a lot split. Nancy is here.
She's still here.
She's still here. She's still here. Did you have any, does anybody have any questions for Nancy? You might want to go up to the podium, Nancy, just in case.
Come on, you know you like that.
Yeah.
Sorry for keeping you out late.
Yeah.
I know, I'm missing a basketball game.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so you have before you a request for a lot split and consolidation. Basically, one of the individuals wishes to purchase 10 feet of property and combine it with theirs. Because of the odd shape, the remaining parcel will be combined with the third piece. If you look at the last two sheets that I had provided in the packet, the one shows the original layout as it currently is, and the second one, the last sheet, shows the proposed layout. In essence, basically what this would do is it would make both of these lots more conforming to our zoning ordinances, and it would square it up and just make them more conducive to the location altogether. You also have in the packet the combination request. Both of the property owners are agreeable to the remaining parcels being combined together as it's shown on that diagram.
Does anybody have any questions for Nancy?
I just have one question. Lot 25, that appears to be broken into half, the west half and east half. Is that owned by the same person?
Yes, yes, it's the same individual owns both the west and the east half of Lot 25 as well as all of Lot 26.
Right. Okay, it was, with the coloring, it kind of indicated that it might be separate.
Separate parcels, but the same ownership.
Same owner, okay. And they want to combine that into just one lot instead of splitting it in half?
Correct.
Okay.
They agreed because splitting the 10 feet off would make the remainder of Lot 26 even narrower, and therefore it would be more of a zoning violation than it currently is. By approving this, then you are making both parcels closer to meeting the zoning requirements, so you're making it better.
Okay.
So the west half of lot 25 is not going to be included in that, even though it's owned by the same person?
They will, the west and east half will be combined together, as well as the southerly 20 feet of Lot 26. Those will be combined into one parcel that would then be 50 by 100 feet, as opposed to the west half being 30 by 50 feet, as it currently is. So in essence, we'll be taking 3 parcels and turning them into 2.
Oh, I see it now. Okay, yeah, yeah. I would move to approve the lot split as presented.
Okay, is there support?
Support by Cummings.
Okay. There's a motion by Mr. Spencer and support by Mr. Cummings to approve the lot split as presented, sorry. Any other discussion? All right, roll call then.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Thank you, Nancy, for remaining.
And I would
Moving,
move to combine the last lots as presented. Or the southern portion of lot 26 and lot 25 as presented in the documentation.
It's all one.
it's all one.
Yeah, it's all in one.
Yeah.
Oh, it was all, that was all one?
It's all
Oh,
one.
It's all done.
It's all.
You're on fertile
But I
use
didn't-
request if you want to do that.
The motion was
You
for a
said as-
split,
as-
to approve the split, not to approve the combination. Not trying to get technical, but
It's only on the agenda as one item.
just saying.
Only on the agenda is one item. So you need it split and combined, or?
There's,
Yes.
the combination paperwork is here,
Yes.
so it would be 2 motions if you didn't
Okay.
catch it in the first one. So.
I thought he said as presented.
Just a guy sitting here.
All right, you want to make the second one then for the combination? To combine them?
I will move that we, combine the lots, the southern 20 feet of lot 26 and the western and eastern lot 25, all 3 of those into one lot,
However she presented it.
however she presented it.
Okay,
Support by Cummings.
all right,
She being Nancy.
okay. All right, so, motion made by Mr. Spencer, support by Mr. Cummings to then combine as presented by the assessor. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wusterbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
You betcha.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, moving on to fertile use requests for the fresh air market this summer.
So Ms. Roberts has given a list of dates for the use of fertile field for her fresh air market. I'm not sure if you guys want to go ahead with all the dates or start off like we did last year with first couple of months. She's got a list of dates.
Isn't it less dates this year? I mean, wasn't it every weekend?
No,
Was it only one weekend a month?
it's
Weekend
one
a month.
weekend a month,
Was it?
usually the first
I was thinking it
weekend
was
of
more.
each month, but it looks now like it's the second. And we did have to change September's dates because there is an event, the Paul Bunyan Festival, on the 17th and the 18th.
Have we heard anything from, is it Danielle? Does she
Yes.
have anything this
She
summer?
has one weekend she's asking for.
Okay, I thought I saw something online, but we haven't gotten that request yet.
We won't, it's just for one weekend, and she's paying the rent, so.
Oh, gotcha.
Can I just have a question as we,
Mhm.
about this? If the fees are paid and they're not asking for fees to be waived, is there a reason why we have to bring this up to the board and we can't have township administration just administer the calendar and the events?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're handling it that way with Danielle, correct?
Right, I
With
didn't
the
know
blue-
if multiple events like that would still require board approval. Because she is not asking for any waiver of fees or
She's
anything.
not asking for any waivers?
And that would honestly work great
Yeah.
if we didn't have to, so.
Expedite the process?
Yep.
Okay, so do we just want to have a motion maybe then to have administration handle the reservations that we don't need?
I would make a motion that reservations concerning Furthoff Field and Warrior Pavilion, as long as there's no fee waiver being requested, that we leave it up to township administration to administer the calendar and assign the dates, and if there's any conflict with competing dates, that is brought back to the board.
Support.
Do you want the, any special use requests to go through the administration as well?
Yeah, he just mentioned that.
Well,
I don't know, did you
special
say
use.
special use requests? I don't think you
Oh,
did.
fee waiver.
So
No.
are we approving this?
You
or
said
just
fee
changing
waiver,
it to
so a
give
special
them
use would be,
ability?
well, I don't want to
Giving-
launch
Yep.
a.
So the
Township
motion is to,
administration.
Steve's motion was to actually shift the reservations to the administration.
Yes, except in the
Multiple
case
dates,
of
reservation.
fee waiving requests.
Yes.
And I'm asking if there should be an exception number 2 for special use. So if they say, well, I want to do something crazy out there, who knows what crazy is?
Somehow or another, I feel that Ms. Klein, if there was a question, would bring it back to us, just to
Agreed.
make sure, but.
Well, I think
could
Ms.
be wrong.
Klein probably would, but we were also looking for the future of the township, and Ms.
Okay.
Klein may not always be here.
That's true.
Well, a motion.
As you wish.
A sad possibility.
Township administration in
Yeah,
the terms
we-
of
whoever-
superintendent.
Okay.
So we don't need to put a name other than superintendent. And I
Right.
did have a second piece to that. Unless there's a conflicting or competing date, something comes in, just like we had 2 LOIs come at the same time, that comes back to the board.
Okay. And you're still good with supporting that, Ms.
Yep.
McGuire? All
Yes,
right.
I am.
Okay, then roll call, please.
Finish typing.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Again, just to be clear, we're not denying her use of Furtaw Field, we're just shifting the scheduling through the administration. Okay? All right, so moving on then to police officer conditional hire request.
Okay, you have a memo from Chief David requesting the conditional hire of Ethan Brandt pending his successful completion of all pre-employment testing and screening. We did an interview with him, and he seems like he would be a good fit.
Nice. That was pretty quick. I mean, that was a pretty quick response.
Well, we knew it was coming, so we
Right.
started ahead of time.
Right.
so,
Right.
Yeah.
Just one application, or did we have more?
We actually had 3, but, yeah, well, we had 3.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we hire Ethan Brandt, as suggested by the chief.
Support? Sutton?
Okay, there's a motion by Ms. McGuire, support by Mr. Sutton to approve the request as submitted by the police chief. Roll call, please.
Ms. McGuire?
Is that contingent on the pre-employment testing and screening?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
as he, yeah,
Okay.
as he suggested.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's always good to be clear.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Venetton, it's the herbicide applicator bids.
Do you want me to do it
Okay,
again?
so there was bids that were put out by the lake manager, and 2 bids were received, which were reviewed by the Weed Committee of Venetton Lake, and they made the recommendation to hire Clark as the herbicide applicator for next year. So that needs board approval.
I will make a motion to, Palmer, I would make a motion to approve Clark Aquatic Services for Venetton Lake weed control for 2022.
Support Spencer.
Okay, there's a there's a motion by Mr. Palmer and support by Mr., was it Spencer?
Yes.
Okay, by Mr. Spencer, to approve Clark. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call then.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishtabarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to the Michigan Launch Initiative letter.
So, this letter was actually drafted, in part with Mr. Dickerson, so I'm gonna let him explain a little more.
Well, there's not a big mystery there. The township and the airport authority have been collaborating on the potential spaceport here and the FAA licensure. The letter you have there is a culmination of Gary and I writing that letter to Mama. And as you can see in that letter, the requested, information and a process going forward.
Also, Mr. Kellen had requested, they would like to do some formatting changes with this particular request, and that the board approve it in draft form pending those formatting changes.
That would include no word changes, just like a format?
Right, none of the wording would change, just how it's laid out in the letter.
There is one other issue I'd like to bring up. It was brought up by our fire chief. He has not been included in any of these meetings for this potential site on the base. I would like to request that the fire chief be brought in for any future discussions so that he can be abreast of what's going to be needed out there for this project. He has some concerns of, are they going to need a full-time fire department out there for this if it goes through? He had a number of concerns, so I would like to advise that we include him in future discussions on this project.
I guess I don't understand, why are we writing a letter to Mama asking for this stuff? I mean, this is our airport, why wouldn't they just be including us in this? Why do we have to request it?
Well, I can't speak on behalf of Mama, but that is
Fair
part of our
enough.
frustration as we're trying to plan the community, what kind of assets will we need, more housing, not more housing, what brick and mortar, what not. We don't have their business plan. There's lots of information we would like to have, so as a community we can plan appropriately. And Mama has not been, I would say, not as forthcoming as we would like, and so now we're requesting it in writing.
What happens if they don't give it to us?
Then I guess we'll deliberate on what next actions we want to take.
It's my recollection at one of the public presentations where the gentleman from Mama spoke, he said that he was putting all this together. So the fact that he's not sharing it with us is rightfully concerning.
Yeah, and I think we're trying to be responsible on behalf of the community and asking for what we, again, without information, we can't plan for anything.
No, that's right, correct.
Exactly, we have people making decisions on housing, on financial investment, on all kinds of things. And we don't have anything solid from them indicating what it is exactly they want from us as a community. So we need that defined so that we can answer questions like the chief has in regard to fire protection and so on, so.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Mr. Palmer's concern, but I'm not sure we're even far enough down the road to bring the fire chief in. We don't know what we don't know, and that's the whole point of this letter.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I would make a motion to support the letter to Michigan Aeronautics Manufacturing Association as presented.
Support Sutton.
Is that including the format change, Bill?
Yes, yes, the format change.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Palmer, support by Mr. Sutton to approve the letter along with format changes as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Last agenda item is congressionally directed spending application letter of support request.
So this was one of the items that Rick had discussed during his engineering report. 3 letters, I believe it is, right, Rick, that you're requesting?
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's correct. Part of this application process is to, letters of support for the application. The application in general is for public infrastructure, public use, anything that would be traditionally funded through federal government, and this would be, as I said, coming from Senator Peters' office, the congressionally directed spending. So in my discussion with Ms. Lively from his office was, I was going to use the Oscoda County Public Health Advisory on the PFAS back 2016, I think it was, initially came out. I was going to use that, and then I thought that it would be beneficial to get a letter of support, obviously from the township, and then also possibly the Economic Committee, Economic Development Committee, to show the support, obviously, of the township whole, and then also the residential and the public commercial / industrial base, also looking for clean water, dependable sewer, and other potentially public use of these funds. So, again, trying to be as vague as possible so that we can use the funds, if successful, to the township's benefit. Short fuse, this is due April 5th. So.
There you go.
So approve it, is that what you're saying?
So if I can work directly with Tammy and Todd on those two, if it's board's direction to do so, and then, like I said, I'll use the Oscoda Public Health notice as the third letter or document of support.
Okay.
Guess I'll make a motion to approve Rick working with Tammy and Todd and Josh in letters of support for potential grants.
Support. Palmer?
There's a motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Mr. Palmer to approve writing those letters. I guess I just had a question. I mean, nothing has changed in the last few years, and we've been asking for this money, but we're just restating the need. I mean,
That is correct.
okay.
They're fully, Senator Peters' office is fully aware of it.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure
So,
they're already, yeah,
I
it seems
think
kind
Ms.
of,
Lively had communications with Mr. Palmer.
Yeah.
It's the process that they go through, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
This is a process where we'll be requesting money directly through Senator Peters'
correct,
office, and he will
Right.
take that directly to
right.
Congress.
so, yeah, CR request from 2016.
Yes,
Just kidding.
exactly.
All right.
All these requests
Not
have been
trying-
very
yeah.
similar in nature.
Right, right,
So-
we've been asking, okay. Okay, so motion by Mr. Westerbarth, support by Mr. Palmer, roll call.
Mr. Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Sutton, yes. Mr. Wishbarth?
Yes.
Ms. McGuire?
Yes.
Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion carried. Okay, moving on to the second public comment section on the agenda. You do not have to have a comment card for this. I'm going to kind of go in sections. Don't know which, doesn't matter really, I guess. I'm going to start to the right, my right, I guess. I'm going to go over here. So raise your hand if you're in the first section there that you would like to make public comment, and then I'll go from there. So I'm going to go front to back. You guys are good? Okay. Oh, this one. And each person, you're going to have to go to the podium, state your full name, because the press needs to get that as well. Okay, you still are limited to 4 minutes. Thank you.
My name's Clayton Jolly, and I have a couple of comments. One, I would like to know, or if there's any progress on the request I made for notification of water that has to be boiled by residents on the post. When I brought that up a month ago, it seemed to have acceptance by the board, and I don't know if there's any progress been made on that. If there is, I'd certainly like to be made aware of it, and the people who are affected would like to be made aware of that progress. That's the first comment I have. I have a couple more. One, attending this meeting tonight, I'd like to bring to the attention of this board, if they're not aware of it, that Furtaw Field seems to be the heart and soul of this township to many of the residents here, the people that elected you to office to represent them. You might not you don't seem to be of that opinion in some of the decisions you're making in regard to that. I'd like you to look at the newspaper if you want to know what this township feels, the comments that are in there. Listen to the comments that come to you here in person. As far as containers, I'm not against them, and I don't think a lot of other people are concerned about the containers or how they look. It's where they're put. I wrote a letter to the newspaper, I don't know if you read it, and I suggested if they wanted to utilize those containers in a place that would actually probably improve the look of our community, put them in Jordanville. Any of you have been by there, and I've been up in this community now, I call this home. Oscoda is my home, and it has been for 25 years. I brag about being from here. I even have license plates for this year that say Oscoda on it. Don't make me ashamed to have those on my vehicle. And I don't believe that Furtaw Field is something that should be labeled disposable. It is something that, we got Paul Bunyan out here. Paul Bunyan's legend started here. Let's don't ruin his home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Kathy Woosterbarth. I wanted to give everybody a little bit more information on what Rick Freeman had mentioned about the water main extensions and the legislation that was passed on March 24th. It was announced that the supplemental budget for the legislator dedicated $8.58 million for water main extensions in Oscoda to address the PFAS contaminated areas. So that's a big win for Oscoda and for anyone that was working on it. I know Bill did a lot of work related to this, but the Now Group really applauds Governor Whitmer and the Michigan legislature for coming to a consensus on this budget and also on this infrastructure that was direly needed for our area. We've been working on it for years, almost a decade now, so we're really pleased to see that happen. And I don't know if any of you remember, but Now came up with their priorities a couple years ago, and we narrowed them down to about 3 priorities. So the first one was that we wanted the large plume for Venetton Lake to be addressed by the Air Force in terms of cleanup in a quick manner, because that is flowing into Venetton Lake. And the second priority was getting those water main extensions to the homes that need them. And our third priority was the health study, or the blood sampling and the health study. And if you remember my comments from the last meeting, we are getting that health study. So all three of our priorities for the NOW group have been successfully, coming to fruition, and we're very proud of that. Thank you. This is a positive step for these water main extensions and the funds that are going to come through here, and I appreciate the question, Jamie, about making sure that we are addressing those funds that the residents that had expended thousands of dollars for these hookups be addressed in that, because that's very important, and people will be asking us that, for sure.
List of people.
Yes, so it is a positive step, but we are not going to stop fighting for the cleanups for this area and to stop the PFAS from flowing into our community and into the Great Lakes. So that's my comments about our successes in this community, and we should all be very proud of that. So the next thing I'd like to mention is the community co-chair for the RAB, Mark Henry, has approached the township about some concerns related to our wastewater treatment facility and the effects of that. And I would like to see the township address him in some manner that you could, decide, but he has some information that this township really needs to know about related to the wastewater treatment facility. Lastly, I'd like to put a plug in for the production that's occurring in this theater both last weekend and this weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you can catch the production Spin-Off. It's the long-awaited production Spin-Off, directed by Diane Ketty. The tickets are $10 for adults and $5 for children, or is it children or students? Students. Okay, so you can come here. I saw it last weekend. It was delightful. It's got lots of twists and turns, and it's a whodunit with lots of laughs. So come on down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Patty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, anybody else in that first row? No? Okay, moving to the second, I'm gonna kind of go in a wave like this. Raise your hand if anybody. Middle section, nothing. Okay, going to the third section. I'm gonna start at the front, go to the back. Great, Mr. Kowski.
Okay, let me remind you of what I said earlier, that there is no, according to your own rules, Township Board protocol, there is no 4-minute time limit for second comment periods. I've proved that. You may disagree with it, but I can assure you, technically, that's true. And also remind you of the fact that if a person is not, if a board violates the Open Meetings Act, they are subject to a misdemeanor, $1,000 fine. And then the second violation is not only another $1,000 fine, but subject to a year in prison or a year in jail. So if I get cut off before I'm finished, I can guarantee you it's going to be the second violation that somebody has experienced from this board. The first one was last week, and this will be the second one, so I can assure you it will go to circuit court. So having said that, let me start out by saying what I observed last week or last meeting was extremely disturbing. That a woman who was given her public comment was manhandled and arrested by police officers. And for what? Because she was upset that she was interrupted from making her public comment, which was in violation of your own rules, that you could not interrupt her unless you were asking for clarification. She was upset by that, and she tried to voice that, but she was shouted down. And then the police were called, and she was forced over into the corner and manhandled. So that was not only disturbing, but infuriating to me. as a citizen, that a fellow citizen of mine was manhandled like that in a way, a woman that was disabled, I understand. Okay, so, Township Board violated two of their own rules. One was setting a 4-minute time limit for the second comment period, which is against their own rules. And the second was interrupting the woman for, without just asking her a question. You interrupted her claiming that she was out of order. And she was out of order for what? Because you, the presiding officer, was confrontational with the woman before she started. First telling her she had no right to discuss a specific topic, which the protocol says she's allowed to bring up any topic she likes. She was directed, you can't discuss that topic. Then she was told she had to comply with the 4-minute rule, which is against your rules. So no wonder she was upset. So the confrontation was started by the board, not by the woman that was behind this podium. She was justified in being a little bit upset. She didn't deserve to be manhandled by the police officers by using excessive force the way they did. And that was appalling. It should be appalling to everybody in this township that a poor woman that was just trying to give her opinion that the township board didn't like, that she was manhandled in the way she was. Now, I'm going to say a couple things here now that it's going to be hard for me to say, because I voted for a few of you people, and it's going to be tough to say. But first of all, I believe that the police officers that were involved in that altercation here should be fired for abuse of excessive force. I believe the township presiding officer should resign for going against the township's own rules and then allowing that person to be manhandled the way that woman was. And then the rest of the board, you all aren't blameless either. You guys allowed that woman to be manhandled, and you were too cowardly to step up and say, this isn't right. This poor woman was just trying to give her opinion, and she was being manhandled by some police officers.
Thank you, Paul, you've had your 4 minutes.
You guys are drunk on power.
Thank you, Paul, you've had your 4 minutes.
And you guys need to resign.
Thank you, Paul, you've had your 4 minutes. I appreciate your input. Thank you.
You know, I will be bringing a suit, a lawsuit against you guys for forcing me to be within these 4 minutes. Be advised.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Is there anybody else in that row that would like to speak?
You guys doing? My name's Rick Koenig from Oscoda, Michigan. First, I want to thank Kathy for that great update. That's great. I'm really happy about that. I find a lot of things are being contradicted, whether it's online, whether it's here or not. I hear things like the town hasn't grown in 10 years, but then we got what? Pretty much committed to 400 units. So, which is it? Can't be both. We can't have 400 units and the town not be growing. It seems like the developers that wanted to bid on Furtaw were told to wait for the Warrior Pavilion update, and I agree with that. But then when I heard you guys start talking about moving that township hall again, then it went to, well, let's listen to the planning commission, wait for them to get back with us. So, that township hall going to Furtaw Field, we fought that battle in 2018 for at least two solid years, close to 3,000 signatures on that petition. That's still out there. I believe it's still valid. Some people don't think it is. But I agree. I think the township has, the community has spoken clearly about Furtaw. And these constant changes to LOIs, and I'm glad that you guys changed it to non-disposable, I am. But I don't know how you want to really determine what the people that live here want the majority, because it's not about what I think. It's not about what somebody may who disagree with me thinks. It's about what the majority of the town thinks. And that's who you guys should be representing. And if you know that the majority of the town does not want any structures on Furtop, and you're doing it anyways, you're not doing your job, in my opinion. Now, what can be done about that? I hate saying it, but we could do a recall this summer. I really don't want to see that, but at the same time, we've waited 7 months for that Warrior Pavilion town meeting that I went to, all three of them, 7 months ago, waiting for it to be brought to all of you guys. I know the last time I was here, none of you had heard the results from it, but your EIC director said he had it. So, I know here I'm going to ask another question, but how long does it take to set something up to get the Warrior Pavilion community input brought forth to you guys, so you guys could even know whether or not for apartments or for a township hall? How can you make that decision without hearing what the community wants? And that's how it was agreed upon, that those Warrior Pavilion meetings were strictly for Furtaw public opinion. I went to all three of them. And 7 months later, now we're still having LOIs being brought in. One of those could have got accepted tonight without you guys even knowing how the township feels, the residents feel about it. So, the other thing is, I don't know what I can say or what I can't say. The thing that happened last week, I'm not going to really get into that, but what I'm going to say is, I asked you guys a question two meetings ago about the Warrior Pavilion meeting, and if you could get back to me, because I understand you don't want to misspeak, and let me know what you guys determined. Is that my 4 minutes?
Yeah. The last minute went by fast.
Okay, last thing is a FOIA request at the last one, $6,000.
Okay, did anybody else in that column have another, or have a public comment? No? Okay. All right, we are now finished with public comment section of the agenda, moving on to board comment. Does any board member have a comment this evening?
Yeah, and I'd like to make a couple of comments, if I might.
Sure.
I made a comment a few meetings ago about funding that's available through the state for businesses. The deadline on that is March 31st. That was $409 million. It's being administered through the Michigan Treasury Department. So I would encourage everybody to, get in touch with any of our businesses to make this application for this money. They can apply for up to $5 million. The other thing I would like to talk about is, it was mentioned several times that Oscoda's been approved in legislation for this roughly $8.6 million for our water projects. This goes back to the very beginning of our PFAS situation here, where our former supervisor, Mr. Weed, petitioned several of our legislators, primarily Sue Aller, and said when this all started, we were trying to get funding to extend these water mains. And he and I traveled to Lansing on a couple of trips, saying, if you would just get us $10 million, we will take this project and do all the phases that we have planned. What we were forced to do is do it piecemeal, a little bit at a time, because first grant we got was for $500,000. The second grant was for $1 million. Sue Aller and Congressman Kildee helped for the first phase to get us an MEDC grant for an additional $300,000 to pay for the residential hookups. But in a meeting that I had just recently with Sue Aller, she said, "Where are you at on your total amount?" She said that Aaron had mentioned, and she she said that originally we were calling for $10 million. I said, well, we've completed a couple of projects that we've spent, got funding for a couple of million. So we're now at about 8.5 million is what I told her, and she was taking notes. And I'm happy to see that she's been pushing. Her number one priority was Oscoda, to get this funding through the Michigan legislature, and so she's accomplished that. So we owe her a debt of gratitude, and as well as the C2R2 grant. That was a grant we had applied for. We were number 11 on the list. So there wasn't any, the first 10 municipalities got funded, but when all of their projects got completed, there was still money left over. And so they notified Oscoda that, well, you will have some of the money that wasn't spent will trickle down to you, and that ends up being an amount of about $1.8 million. So this is money that we'll have so that the township doesn't have to borrow money. I've been opposed to the township having to borrow money to take care of a contamination that was not our fault, and that any of our residents should have to pay to hook up to those water main extensions, I think is not right. And so I'm pleased that those things are coming to fruition, that hopefully we won't have to go into debt to take care of this contamination problem in terms of people that have water wells that are in areas of concern. So that's my comment, and thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Just go down the line, I guess. Did you have anything, Steve?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment on that funding. I know it's been a lot of work started with the past boards, the Now Group, and then just partnerships and lobbying efforts with jointly between the board, state representatives, the governor, and including the federal government, both our senators and our congressman at now still, Kildee. Personally, I've witnessed over the years the amount of effort that it has taken behind the scenes that nobody sees. Bill has put a tremendous amount of time on. A lot of members from the past board has put a tremendous amount of time on. A lot of members of the Now Group, which has grown to many people. There's multiple phone calls that goes for hours, trips to Lansing, trips to Washington. Just want to thank everybody involved, because without that, we wouldn't have gotten a penny. So there's a lot of effort behind the scenes that is done by the citizens to make this happen, and I appreciate that. And hopefully I'll get some time back with my wife, because she'll be less busy, so.
Tim, did you have anything?
I didn't. Thank you very much.
Got all kinds of things, but I'm skipping it tonight.
Okay. I guess I just mentioned earlier, I will not be at the first meeting in April. Just have a vacation plan, so will not be in attendance, just letting you know that now. Appreciate everybody's, we have a long meeting here tonight, appreciate everybody hanging in, and thank you very much. So, have a nice evening.
Need a motion?
Motion to adjourn, that was coming out of my mouth next. I make a motion to adjourn at 9:53.
So moved.
Thank you.
Wow, we blew past.